And now, a story from the Appleseed.
Well, old Jack, he had been round the world on a mule, so to speak. He'd had all kind of adventures. And he settled down finally over there in Williamsburg County, had him about 40 acres, and he was a-plowing with that mule. Well, he had worked all day. He is filthy, dirty, and tired out, and all of a sudden he looked up, and coming down the road was his big brothers, Will and Tom. They were hollering and yelling and carrying on. The sweat was a-flying off their forehead. They was worked up to a fare-you-well. Well, Jack knowed something was up, so he let his mule stand under a shade tree and rest a while, and he went over to the barbed wire next to the road and asked them boys what they were carrying on about. And they come up all breathless, and they said, "There ain't been nobody around here?" He said, "No, there ain't been nobody around here." And they said, They ain't been nobody a-talking to you." He said, "I've been out here in this field with a mule, and I'm standing at the wrong end of him for a quality conversation. There ain't been nobody here to talk to. What are you boys carrying on about?" And they said, "Oh, well, let us be the first to tell you then. The king done declared a big old war, and every able-bodied man's got to go off and fight." Jack said, "I ain't going off and fighting in no war." They said, "Now, if the king declared a war, how you going to get out of it?" He said, "There's two reasons why I ain't going off to fight in no war, and the first one's named Sweet Lips." And them boys said, "Sweet Lips?" That was Jack's dog. He had a blue tick hound dog. She's about half growed. He named her Sweet Lips, and she's a real purty dog, and she looked like she's going to be Champagne Coon dog. He said, "If I go off to the war, somebody else will get a hold of my dog, and they'll teach it wrong, and it'll be a cold trailing and won't be good for nothing." He said, "I'm staying right here where I can train my dog Sweet Lips." And his brother said, "You can't hide behind a dog." Well, Jack knowed that, and he said, "I told you I had two reasons why I ain't going off to fight in no war. One of them is my dog named Sweet Lips, and the other is a sweet-lipped girl named Sally." Oh, yeah, y'all remember Sally McCormick, Judge McCormick's oldest daughter? Yeah, all the fellers in Williamsburg County was sweet on her, but she had caught Jack's eye, and Jack had caught her heart. And they had sweared undying love to one another. As soon as the judge said it's all right, they's going to get married. And Jack said, "If I go off to the war, some other fellow will be moving in and trying to take my girl." He said, "I ain't going to be having that." And they said, "You can't hide behind a woman. That's the very definition of a coward." Well, he knowed that they had him on that score, so he had to hatch him a plan. So that night, Jack, he went home and he got his dog Sweet Lips and tied a string around her neck, and he got a double-barrel shotgun and broke it down over his shoulder, and he lit out for Sally McCormick's house. Well, when he got up to Sally's place, she was a-setting on the front porch swing, and she seen Jack a-coming. She said, "Oh, Jack, did you come to whisper sweet nothings in my ear?" He said, "I didn't come to whisper sweet nothings in your ear, Sally." She said, "Did you come to sing me some purty love songs?" He said, "No, I didn't come to sing you no purty love songs. I got to go off and fight in a war, and I come and brung you my dog so you can take care of it while I'm off fighting." She said, "I don't want to take care of that old dog." He said, "Now, Sally, if you love me, you'll love my dog. Let her sleep at the foot of your bed and feed her some good table scraps and be good to her." She said, "All right, Jack. I love you, so I love your old dog." He said, "And if any men come a-sniffing around here, you sick the dog on them." She said, "You ain't got to worry about that, Jack. These eyes is only for you." He said, "They better be only for me." He said, "And if the dog don't chase them off, that's what I brought you this double-barrel shotgun for." She said, "I ain't gonna need to chase off men with no double-barrel shotgun. These lips are only for you, Jack. Only for you." He said, "You make sure you remember that." And he left her with that gun and that dog, and Jack went off to fight. Well, he was gone the longest of time. It's 10 years or more before Jack got home. Oh, yeah. And finally, when it was time to come home, Jack was on his head to get back to Sally McCormick, and he didn't want to take the road. Have you ever took that road over to Williamsburg County? On my word, so full of holes and twists and winds, you meet yourself coming around some of them curves. It'd take him forever. So he thought the best way to get back home in quick fashion is to go on the river. So he got him a boat and he put it in the river and he lit out. Well, the awfulest storm come up. Lightning was splitting the sky and the thunder was a-roaring around, and poor old Jack, he was down the bottom of that boat a-praying for his very life. Well, when the storm broke and the morning come and the light come up, Jack got blowed so far off course he didn't know where he was. So he put his boat over to the side of the river on the bank, and he went to climbing way up to the top of a ridge. He figured if he got way up on the mountain, he could take a bear and see which way Williamsburg County was. And when he got way up there high on the mountain, he come to a big old cave. And he walked in that cave, and the whole floor was covered over in bones. And at the back of that cave, there's a bed that would sleep 14 men. And Jack thought, ooh, I've come to a land of giants. Now, Jack knowed a thing or two about giants, and he thought, they got treasure. If I could get the treasure off of them, I could take it home to Sally for a wedding present. So he crawled up underneath that big 14-man bed to hide. And while he was hid up there, he heard a voice come in at the mouth of the cave saying, "Wah, I know my supper's in here somewhere." And Jack peeped out from underneath that bed. Ooh, there's the ugliest booger he had ever seen in his life. Had long, scraggly hair hanging down its back, had a big old warty nose, big old arms as big as tree limbs, legs like tree trunks, and the queerest thing about that big booger man is it had one eye right in the middle of its forehead. It was a blinking that big eye around and sniffing and a snorting with that big warty nose. And before Jack thought or knew what he was going to do, in behind that big old one-eyed booger come the biggest hound dog Jack had ever seen. It was as big as a draft mule. And he thought, there's the treasure right there. There ain't nobody in Williamsburg County got a dog that big. I could take that dog home to Sally for a wedding present. But before he had time to hatch a plan as how to steal that dog off that giant, that old dog stuck its head right underneath that 14-man bed and grabbed Jack by the back of the neck and hauled him out, and that big old one-eyed booger man snatched up Jack and he said, "Oh, I smelled my supper and my dog done pulled you out from underneath that bed and now I'm gonna eat you." And he started to pop Jack right in his mouth. Jack said, "Wait. He said, I'm a stranger in your land. I don't know your customs, but where I'm from, people don't never eat together unless they've been properly introduced. What might your name be?" And that big old one-eyed giant, he said, "My name's Polyphemus. What might your name be?" Jack said, "I'm Nobody." He said, "Nice to meet you, Mr. Nobody. Now I'm going to eat you." He started to pop Jack in his mouth. Jack said, "Not yet. You're supposed to stop me up on a stick and roast me over the fire. You can't eat meat raw. That'd make you sick as a dog." So old Polyphemus, he said, "Oh, I forgot that." He set Jack down, he scraped together some logs and sticks and such, and he got a big fire roaring up in that cave, and then he grabbed up Jack and he said, "Now, Mr. Nobody, I'm going to stop you up on the end of a stick, I'm going to roast you over the fire and eat you." Jack said, "Not yet. You're supposed to dip me in a pot of boiling water and scald the hair off. Ain't you never been to a hog butchering?" So he said, "Oh, I forgot that." So he set him down. He went and he got a big old pot, dipped up some water and put it up on that fire. After a while, it was a bubbling and a steaming. He grabbed up Jack and he said, "Now, Mr. Nobody, I'm going to stick you in this water. I'm going to scald all your hair off, and then I'm going to stop you up on the end of a stick and roast you over the fire, and I'm going to eat you." Jack said, "Well, there's only one thing you lack, Daddy." He said, "What's that?" He said, "You got to pray and thank the Lord." Jack knowed he had him there because he's old heathen. He didn't know nothing about prayer. He said, "Now get down on your knees." So that big old giant booger man, he got down on his knees. He said, "Fold your hands up." He folded his hands up. He said, "And don't be a-looking around while I'm a-praying." He said, "My brothers Will and Tom, they always keep one eye open during the blessing so they can snatch the best pork chop off the platter while I'm a-thanking the Lord." And that old giant, he said, "I only got one eyeball. I ain't going to be looking." And he closed up his eye, and Jack, he went into praying. He prayed for the longest of time. Whole time he is a-praying, he is fishing a hot log out from underneath that pot of boiling water. It was pointed on the end and red hot like a fireplace poker. And he hefted that log up on his shoulder. And when he got into his prayer, he was right in front of that old hunkered down giant. And he said, "Lead, guide, and direct us. Amen." And he shoved that log right in that giant's eye. When he popped his eye open, that log went right in, and you could hear that eyeball a-sizzling and a-popping like an egg in the fry pan. And that old giant jumped up, and he was a-hollering and yelling and carrying on, and he flung his hands around, and he hit a big old rock, and it rolled right across in front of the mouth of the cave and stopped the cave up. And Jack thought, "Oh, now look at there, what am I going to do? I was going to get that dog and run off after I blinded him, and he done stopped the mouth of this cave up. I can't get out of here." That old giant was a-hollering and yelling. Well, all the other giants in the land heard him, and they come a-climbing across the ridges and run up to the mouth of the cave, and there's a big old rock had got it stopped up. And they started yelling, Polyphemus, Polyphemus, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? And he kept yelling, nobody hurt me, nobody hurt me. They said, well, if nobody hurt you, lay down and go to sleep. You're disturbing our rest. And they climbed back over the mountains and left that poor old giant with that log stopped up in the middle of his forehead, blind as a bat. Well, Jack was worried about how he's going to get out, and then he seen his salvation. That big old mule dog started sniffing around that rock, and that old giant was a-feeling around on that dog, and he said, my dog needs to go outside and make water again a tree. I'm going to move this rock and let him go. I'll keep my hands near him, and if I feel a man go out with him, I'll kill him dead. Jack seen his salvation, and he climbed right up underneath that dog. So when the dog walked out, that old giant was petting that dog on the head and back, didn't know that Jack was walking underneath it. And that dog went out, and Jack took that dog right down to his boat and put it up in the front of that boat, and he lit out for Williamsburg County. Well, he got down away from that one-eyed booger man, and he come around a big old bend in the river, and over there in the yard, sorta, a big old field, there's a white tent. And you could hear people in there singing songs and carrying on and laughing the holy laugh. They was having a revival. Well, there's a Bible man in there holding forth, and it ain't respectful to go past a Bible man and not listen to what he has to say. So Jack stopped and put his boat over there on the shore to listen to the word. And pretty soon, all them folks that got religion come down the river for a baptizing. And that Bible man come over there, and he thumped on that good book. He looked at Jack, and he said, son, are you saved? Well, Jack thought about that one-eyed booger man. He said, yeah, I reckon I've been saved. He said, where are you headed? Jack told him he's going back to Williamsburg County. He said, now, there's something you need to know. When you go on around the bend in this river, the river's going to fork. And there's two different ways that you could take your boat, and you're going to have to pick which way to go. And on one side, there's all kind of jagged rocks and swirls and dips, and it looks like it'd tear your boat to pieces. And on the other side, the water is just as smooth as glass, and there's all kind of willow trees hanging down on the opposite bank. It's as pretty as a picture, Jack, and you're going to have to pick which way you're going to go. And Jack said, I think I've read about this in the book from which you preach. There is a way that seemeth right unto a man, but the end thereof is death. He said, that's right, Jack. He said, if you go over there where that water's real smooth and them pretty willow trees, back up and under them willow trees, there's old witch woman's got a shack back there. She's a wicked woman, Jack, a wicked woman. I've been preaching to her forever. She ain't never gonna believe. And she gonna be looking at you through the eye of her needle. And when she sees you coming, she'll set up a song, and it'll go high and low and straight to your soul, Jack. And before you know it, you be drawn across the water toward them willow trees, but it's a trick. Up and underneath them willow trees, there's a big old suck. And you'll get pulled down and you'll be killed. Well, Jack didn't want to get killed in a suck. But to hear a song that would go high and low and straight to a feller's soul, now that was something. So Jack jumped out of the boat, and he grabbed up some moss from the riverbank, and he stuffed it in his hound dog's ears. And then he throwed that hound dog right out of the boat in front of it, and he wrapped a rope around it, and he sat up in the head of the boat and held onto that rope like you'd hold reins of a mule, and that dog went to dog paddling out in the river, and he is holding on to it, and cause that dog had moss in its ears, it couldn't hear that old witch woman singing her song, but Jack could hear it just fine. And ooh, yes indeed, she set up a song that went high and low and straight to Jack's very soul. He's about ready to pitch himself into that water and swim off toward that wicked woman. But then that dog went, oh, and turned and went right down through them dips and shoals and jagged rocks and saved Jack's life. Well, finally, Jack got home to Williamsburg County, and he lit out straight for Sally McCormick's place. He put that dog over in the woods for a surprise, and when he got up to the gate, what do you think he saw? There was Sally McCormick a-setting on the porch swing with Will on one side of her and Tom a-setting on the other. Them boys had lied to Jack. They had sent him off to the war, and they had stayed home and tried to steal his girl. Will was a whispering thanks to Sally, and she was going, "Oh, Will, stop saying things like that. If you keep that up, we're going to have to get married." And Tom had a fiddle on his shoulder, and he was drawing the bow across them strings and playing all kinds of purty tunes. She said, "Ooh, Tom, them's the purtiest love songs I ever did hear." And Jack hollered from the gate, and he said, "Sally, it hurts me deep in my heart to see you two-timing me with my own brothers." Well, Sally didn't recognize him. I mean, he'd been gone 10 years or so, and he's all scraggly. His clothes is torn where he fought that big one-eyed booger man. His hair was all a mess. She said, "I don't know how you come to know my name, Booger Man, but go around behind the house, and my mama will get you something to eat." He said, "I ain't no Booger Man." He said, "I'm your man, Jack." She said, "I don't know if you're Jack or not, but there's one way to find out." She went in the house and come back with a double-barrel shotgun. She said, "My man left me with this double-barrel shotgun, but the hammers is so stiff on it, I never could pull them back. There ain't nobody around here can pull the hammers back on this here gun. I reckon if you could pull the hammers back on this gun, you'd be the man you say you are." Jack took that gun, went click, click. He pointed both barrels right at his big brother Will. He said, "Will, where's my dog?" Oh, Will started in. He said, well, Jack, you was gone an awfully long time, and Jack stuck his fingers in his mouth, and he whistled real loud, and here comes Sweet Lips trotting around the end of the house. Oh, Lord, them boys had beat that dog and kicked it and starved it till it looked like it's about dead. Jack said, "It's one thing to try to steal a man's girl, and it's quite another to abuse his dog." Boom! He took a shot, and old Will jumped out of that swing and took off running down the road. Boom! He took a second shot. Tom threw down that fiddle and went right out behind him, and Jack throwed that gun down. He picked up that fiddle, and he played a song that went high and low and straight to Sally's soul. She said, "Oh, Jack, it is you. You kill me." And Jack and Sally, they got married and had all kind of puppies from them two dogs they got together. Sold every one of them for $500 each. Last time I was over at Williamsburg County, Jack and Sally, they was independent rich.
Thanks for joining us for a story from the Appleseed.